We are now calling the meeting to order. The Solid Waste Management Authority of the City of Crescent City and the County of Del Norte, State of California, is now meeting in regular session. Only those items that indicate a specific time will be heard at the assigned time. All items may be taken out of sequence to accommodate public and staff availability, and it would be my pleasure to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance today. Right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Karen, if you would, as per protocol, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Wilson?
Here.
Commissioner Gitlin?
I think I'm still the chair, but here.
Chairman, Commissioner. Commissioner Hawley?
Here.
Commissioner Gastineau?
Here.
And noting for the record that Commissioner McClure is absent.
Thank you very much. Okay. We'll now entertain public comments. Any member of the public may address the Solid Waste Management Authority on any matter that is either on or off the agenda. If you wish to speak to an item on the agenda right now, you will not be given the opportunity to speak on the agenda at the time it is called. So you may want to hold your comments until the item is called on the agenda. After receiving recognition from the chairman, please give your name and address for the record. City or county would be fine. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Public comments at this time.
Hello, my name is Lori Markle. I live in this county. I have known Richie Taylor for about 20 years now. I recently learned that he's been the treasurer and controller of the Solid Waste Management Authority for over 20 years. I used to keep my horses out at Richie's property. I also worked and partnered up with Kevin Hartwick as half owner of the Flying Bee Ranch. Both Richie and Kevin are both CPAs and close friends. While at various functions and numerous occasions, Kevin Hartwick would tell me that Richie taught him every dirty trick in the book. I'm very concerned about learning that money went missing from the solid waste because the amount of corruption in this town is overwhelming and truly amazing that the people in high positions and authority get away with these things. I also know Don Scanlon because of Kevin Hartwick's parties and get-togethers. Kevin Hartwick also told me on lots of occasions that he owned the sheriff's department. So when I learned that former Deputy Bob Barber didn't even interview Kevin Hendricks, I was not surprised. I would hope that the board will vote to make Scanlon reports available to the public. I would also hope that the board will think about replacing Richie Taylor with someone that is not connected with Kevin Hartwick. It is in my belief that Kevin Hartwick runs this entire town. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lori. Again, this was your opportunity to speak when the item is called. We will not be allowing you to speak on this item, and thank you very much for you expressed your free speech, and as is in the spirit of this. I always like to have people come in here with a robust and open attitude. When allegations are made, I'm going to say this, and I'm only going to say it once. It's always best that it be held in an area where there's credibility to it, and any accusations that are made without valid proof are exactly that, they're allegations. Having said that, are there any more public comments? Okay, I will close now the public comment session, and we will move on to the consent agenda. Now, since the time we spoke last, Mr. Ward, I have read the minutes from I believe this is the December 10th meeting, so I will not need to recuse myself. So I'll entertain a motion at this time to approve the regular session minutes from Wednesday, December 10th. And for that matter, I will take all of the items. Let's do them one at a time so we get through this. Approve the minutes for the regular session Wednesday, December 10th. Do we have a motion?
I'll move.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second to that motion?
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Any discussion on the approval of the minutes from either the public or any other board members? Any corrections that wish to be made? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, I'll ask Karen, would you please call the roll? Call the vote.
Commissioner Hawley?
Yes.
Commissioner Gastineau?
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson?
Yes.
And Chairman Gitlin?
Yes. Move on to 1.2, approve the minutes from the regular session of the January 14th meeting, and I'll entertain a motion to approve those.
So moved?
And we have, do we have a second? Okay, do we have, Commissioner Gessler, thank you very much. Okay, is there any comment from the public with regard to consent, the approval of the minutes from the January 14th meeting? Board comments?
I did have one thing on the page 2, under section 1, consent agenda, 1.2. It seemed to end with an odd number. It said 091405. I didn't know why that was in there exactly.
Those are filing numbers.
Oh.
For cross-reference, somebody who looks at the agenda item and wants to find the file at the authority office for the attachment, that's where it would be located.
Okay. My second comment was under section 2. Again, I felt that it was important that the deep wells were above the tolerance levels, but the shallow wells were below the tolerance levels. It just would be nice to have that noted in that section, just so in reviewing the minutes to prepare for a meeting, then, you know, all of the items are there. And then under item 4.1, I believe that there's pretty much, it's the large paragraph there at the top. It talks about this program is a great benefit to the community. Commissioner Wilson would like to see if there's a backlog of paints. And I think that word needs to be changed to money. I was wanting to see if there was
I'm
any
sorry, it needs to be changed to what? I didn't hear.
money, if there
Money?
was any money available in the program to help with the epoxy paints. So that was my question. It wasn't, it's just, I think it's a typo there.
Okay.
So, anyway, those would be my recommendations, and I, not the first one, Ted's clarified that, but under section 2.1, I'd like to add in that the deep wells were above tolerance levels and the shallow wells were below tolerance levels.
Just to be clear, there are no tolerance levels established for the deep wells, so it's not entirely accurate to say that the deep wells were below tolerance levels, because there are no tolerance levels for the deep wells.
I don't know how it was expressed in the meeting last time. Basically, my understanding was, I thought I repeated it back in the minutes when I watched
Let me
the,
interrupt just for, let me just.
I can keep that note myself if that's, but the shallow wells were below the tolerance levels?
Generally, but not completely. It's not an absolute statement.
Can I intercede just for a second? And the purpose of doing this would be not to debate this issue at this time. And I appreciate what we're saying. Do we want to accept Commissioner Wilson's change of the verbiage? That's really what this is about. And I think
And I'm
rather
saying
than,
technically it's not accurate.
I'll withdraw then, and I'll just recommend that we accept these with the change of the one word. Then under 4.1, instead of backlog of paints, it was backlog of monies.
okay, now again, I would say to you, Commissioner Wilson,
Motion to approve.
that if you wish to have that, this board can decide.
fine, I'm fine.
Okay, so you're just on the paint. Okay, do we have a consensus from the board on changing paint to money? We have a.
Yes.
Okay, so then I believe we have a motion to approve and a second, and there's no further discussion, so I'll ask Karen if you call the vote.
Commissioner Gastineau?
Yes.
Commissioner Hawley?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes?
And Chairman Gitlin?
Yes would be yes. Okay, now, moving right along, I'm going to take 1.6 out for separate discussions, and I'm going to now move forward on entertaining a motion on consent agenda items 1.3, 1.4, 1.5, and 1.7 at this time, unless any board member wishes to take any item out for further discussion.
I'd like to take out 1.3.
1.3 will be taken out and circled, as is 1.6. And at this time, we'll entertain the motion for 1.4, 1.5, and 1.7. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll move that we approve those items in the consent calendar.
Okay, and...
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any public discussion on these items? Okay. Okay, hearing none, I will close that and ask Karen for the vote on 1.3, 1.5, and 1.7. Did I say that right? Yeah. Okay.
4, 5, and 7.
Thank you. I'm getting a little mixed up. Okay, yes. Karen, if you would, please.
Commissioner Wilson,
Yes?
Commissioner Hawley,
Yes?
Commissioner Gitlin,
Yes.
and, I'm sorry, Commissioner Gastineau.
Yes.
I got that backward.
Okay, now moving out, Commissioner Wilson, you pulled out 1.3, which I will read. Acknowledge and file semi-annual monitoring and reporting report submitted to the North Coast Regional Waters Quality Control Board regarding the Crescent City landfill for the period July through December 2014. Commissioner Wilson.
Is this already been filed?
Yes, it has.
Okay, so then my comments won't matter. I just wanted to, well, it doesn't matter then, it's already been
Well,
filed.
it's okay to vet these things, and I think it's important that we do. I'm going to ask the public if they have a comment on 1.3 only. No comments on 1.3. And Commissioner Wilson, you're satisfied that the report has been filed and there is no further action necessary other than to entertain the motion?
Yeah,
this
the
point.
only thing I would have said is, you know, in your close, you go into the fact that there was no, virtually no traffic, parking, or paved areas on the landfill site, and that staff believes, you know, it would be, you said that stormwater runoff may be addressed through surface and groundwater monitoring efforts, which I thought that was a really strong point. I was hoping that that might be moved into the opening, and then I thought that maybe a call to action would have been appropriate at that point in time. So I thought that was very well written. I just wanted to have it placed within the report because it's so important that we terminate this. So anyway.
Okay,
thank you.
so I'll entertain a motion on 1.3 at this time.
I'll move to approve.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and we will call the vote. Karen, if you would, please.
Commissioner Gastineau,
Yes.
Commissioner Hawley,
Yes?
Commissioner Wilson,
Yes?
and Chairman Gitlin.
Yes. And now, just as a side note, Ted, would you just let us know that we have an intact wall on 1.4? That it's
Absolutely,
no
that
longer
repair has
got a big
been-
hole in it because an automobile thought it was a road and, you know.
We no longer have a third entrance to the
Okay,
facility.
good. Okay, having said that, $7,764 later, I presume there's some insurance back and forth, so
We had no net cost apart from staff time.
it's always good news. Okay, now, I'm going to, we have an item pulled, 1.6. Ted, I'm going to refer that to you since you've asked it to be pulled from the consent agenda, so go ahead and explain what your reason is you want it pulled now.
Thank you, sir. We received an unsolicited proposal from Total Compensation Systems for $2,600 to do an actuarial evaluation that we are required to do under GASB as it's been updated 45. And so this was a different firm than has done this kind of work in the past. We've used Bickmore for the last few years, and Bickmore is the company that services the county providing these services. And so I approached Bickmore and I said, hey, what's the chance that we can negotiate a lower rate? And so in response, they put in a proposal for the same price as Total Compensation Systems. And so just to keep things consistent with the county, my recommendation is that we secure a contract for these services through Bickmore for the same rate, for $2,600.
What was the cost, excuse me, what was the cost again?
$2,600.
So is it the same?
It's the same price as
It's the same price?
but it's significantly, it's about $600 less than Bickmore charged us last year.
How
much?
About $600 less.
Okay, board comments.
I thought it was extremely high, $2,600 for, you know, the amount of work. I'm certain that there must be programs to run the retirement programs through, so $2,600 is very high. In my opinion, though, I just find it a little bit unfair when someone comes in with a lower bid that you'll get the original company to come down to that bid when they had been higher. And if it were my decision to make in my business, I would go with the company that came in at the lower fee, and then, you know, shoot, you might be able to actually even go back with them and, you know, at this point in time and get them down. So it seems as if it's pretty straightforward. figuring these out with, tables and computers. So like I said, I would lean towards the new people. I would probably try and negotiate that down a bit, and that would be my opinion.
Okay, so the decision will be made whether we want to entertain this and pull this in for a later
Does not have to
discussion
be
or
executed.
vote on this at this
Oh, that's-
time.
that-
Other board comments?
That's my thought, actually, because I don't know that this agenda, the wording in this agenda allows us to go with a different company.
Well, we have the
we're
option to
executing-
pull it and delay it until the next meeting.
Yes,
Is that
you
my
could,
understanding?
you absolutely could take action on this at the following meeting if you have any follow-up that you'd like me to do before you make a decision.
Including a reevaluation of the rate and its services rendered accordingly? Is that something we could do as part of, per Commissioner Wilson's request?
I
To
did
renegotiate?
confirm that they're similar services. So
Okay.
essentially, they're similar, very similar services for the same price, but Bickmore has lowered their price in response to a request.
Okay.
But they're the same price. And
Sure.
I
Yeah, go
would
ahead.
only say that, assuming that Bickmore did it last year for us, they must have the base documents to work from. It seemed like it would be easier for them to do it in the second year.
Okay.
I don't know.
And it's
Yeah.
cheaper this year than it would have been if we didn't ask, if we go with Bickmore, but it's an option.
I would maybe recommend that you see if you can get a lower bid from TSC, and,
Oh, is that-
if not, then I would probably, like
Is
I
that a
said,
motion?
I would make a motion that you would try to negotiate with TCS for a lower bid, and then we'll have full
So
and
you-
complete information at the next meeting to,
Let me understand. So your motion would be to invite a bid? Is that what, to invite a new bid?
yep.
Okay. Do I have a second to that motion? Well,
Th-
hearing...
well,
Yeah.
Just a little discussion. It
Well, let's get
seems-
the second, then we'll have a discussion. Do you want to second it, or if no one wants to second it, because I'd like to get the protocol right. Now, we will have the second on it, then we can discuss. Now, is there a second to that motion?
But are we still voting to actually pull 1.6 from the consent agenda?
We have pulled 1.6.
Right.
And we are
And
entered,
to table it for another meeting.
yes, but then we have a sub-motion, and I'll defer to council on how the substitute motion prevails on this discussion of pulling 1.6. So, council, we pulled 1.6, which is a consent agenda item directing staff to execute an agreement with Total Compensation Systems to conduct a required actuarial evaluation for an amount not to exceed $2,600. Now, Mr. Ward has asked me to pull this to have a discussion that, for next week. So let me get to the idea of, can we entertain the substitute motion for, per Commissioner Wilson?
Yes, we have two options. One, we can approve the contract that was presented, or you can give direction to staff to come back to the next meeting with more options, basically what Commissioner Wilson is suggesting.
Okay, and what we're waiting for is if Commissioner Wilson's motion has a second, and that's what I'm trying to get clarity on. So do we have a second on Commissioner Wilson's motion to come back and entertain a bid from the, what's the name of the company? TTS?
TCS, Total Compensation Systems.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I'll second for purposes of getting
That's
to a
clear.
discussion.
Okay, now, having seconded, I would like to invite the public to engage in this discussion if you so choose to at this point. Does the public wish to address this discussion at this time? Seeing that, none, I will bring it back to the board. Go ahead, Commissioner Holly.
Thank you.
This is what you would like to do, and let's discuss this.
This process seems a little bit awkward at this point to me. It seems like maybe, I don't know if we should do an RFP, have everybody do a bid. We have somebody that spontaneously said they could do this for us, and then I guess we approached the prior actuarial people, and they decided to undercut them, and now the interest is going to see if we can undercut the undercut. I just don't, it doesn't seem like the proper way to do business to me. I don't know if we need to send a letter out and ask them to actually give us a complete proposal and advise them that we're looking at other organizations as well, and then we look at them all at the next meeting, is what I'm thinking. I don't know.
I don't know that you really, it's something under $5,000, really, the director has the ability to make the call, isn't that correct?
For these kinds of professional services, my understanding is we have a good deal of flexibility in terms of how they're negotiated, and my interest was entirely about getting the best service for the best price for the board.
Okay, so that's a question then. Is this something that has to come back to the board if you have the ability?
My understanding, that our legal counsel has advised that this was not agendized for action to actually award a contract to Bickmore, and so
Okay.
if that is the intent of the board, that even to discuss the comparative bids, that bringing it back to the next meeting would be appropriate.
It doesn't even need to come back, though, does it? You could make the call, can't you?
I could, potentially, if the board was comfortable, but I was essentially looking for guidance, and so.
Yes, and I understand that this is not an agendized item, but this is a substitute motion on the basis of this discussion. I don't want to get too clouded in this whole issue, but at the same time, council, if we need to take this issue and Commissioner Wilson's issue, which has been seconded, and then we take a vote on it, is that out of order? Or should we table this whole matter and instruct the director to come back with this information? I want to understand the proper protocol per Commissioner Holly, so that if we table 1.6 completely and then give the direction on a separate matter to investigate if this can be negotiated, would that be the proper protocol?
And come back with a recommendation?
Yes, giving direction to come back is fine, because it will be coming back before the board for further discussion and approval.
Okay, having said that, I will ask that since it need not be in the form of a motion, that
I'll pull my motion.
pull your motion. and
thank
would
you.
pull us- Okay,
So
let's unwind the tape a little bit.
A point of order, would we vote on 1.6 no?
I think what we're going to do, and what I'm going to
Table.
entertain the motion on, Commissioner Gastineau, is tabling it.
All right.
Now, if that's in your comfort zone, then I'll entertain the motion now to table this until the March meeting, and we will then give following this, we'll give the director
Can I-
instructions.
Can I interrupt for a second?
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson pulled her motion, so now we need the second pulled also before you continue.
Okay, say again, Karen?
Commissioner Wilson pulled her motion.
Oh,
and
yes.
so we need
And-
a
and I
second.
thought-
I'll withdraw my second as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bring that
I
up.
thought Commissioner Holly had done that, my error. Okay, now, having said that, winding the tape back, then let us move forward we have a motion to table. Do we have a motion to table?
I move that we table 1.6, any required actuarial evaluation contract until the next meeting when we get more information.
Okay, do I have a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any public discussion at this time? Okay, hearing none. Any further board comments before we vote? Hearing that, Karen, I'll ask you to please call the roll.
Commissioner Wilson?
Yes?
Commissioner Holly?
Yes.
Commissioner Gastineau?
Yes.
Chairman Gitlin?
Yes. Now, having said that, Ted, I would ask you to entertain by voice consensus, that the authority wishes you to investigate possible renegotiations per Commissioner Wilson's suggestions, not the form of a motion, and get back to us on the possibility of doing that for the March meeting. Okay. We can move on, and we did 1.7, so let us move on to landfill disclosure, and 2.1, discussion possible action regarding submitting a notice of termination or notice of intent for recertification. I'm going to read that again because it gets a little murky. This is discussion and possible action regarding submitting a notice of termination or a notice of intent for recertification under the new statewide industrial general stormwater permit for the Crescent City landfill. Ted, if you will, please.
We've discussed this item, flavors of this item at a couple previous meetings, and this is regarding the industrial stormwater monitoring at the landfill. There are several requirements for our water quality monitoring, and they include stormwater, surface water, and groundwater. So this is just with respect to the stormwater monitoring requirements. And I did talk to Paul Kieran of the Regional Water Quality Control Board, and he seemed to think that a notice of termination would likely move forward and likely be favorably received, which would relieve us of
Excellent.
stormwater monitoring requirements. And so we have a choice. We can either apply for a notice of termination or a notice of intent for recertification. My recommendation is we apply for the notice of termination for the.
I would just ask you this for clarification. Are there any costs associated with this?
Well, potentially there's a significant reduction in costs.
Yeah,
If the
savings.
notice of termination is approved, then we will be relieved of our stormwater monitoring requirements at the landfill.
All right, now at this time, I will ask the public if they wish to engage in 2.1 to come up to the dais and discuss at this point the recommendation of the acting director having to do with a notice of intent for recertification, if I heard you correctly.
Notice of termination.
I'm sorry, correction. It's submitting a notice of termination, not a notice of intent for recertification. So the choice is to come up and discuss on this issue only. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, we'll close that. We'll bring it back to the board, to the authority for discussion, and I entertain a motion on submitting a notice of termination for the new state, under the new state industrial general stormwater permit for the Crescent City landfill. Do I have a motion?
I'll move
Okay.
to approve.
Do I have a second?
Yes, I'll second that.
Okay. Any further board
We're
discussion?
approving the termination.
We are
Yes.
approving the termination is the motion. That's correct, not the intent for recertification. Okay, now I have a motion and we have a second. Is there any authority comment?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Sorry. I thought it was wonderful to see this. It was a great idea. I went through here and read on some of their basis of termination, and I feel that we have a really good shot at this. I went through the checklist, and again, you know, in my knowledge, I put no on everything. So I think that we have a very good shot of terminating this, and I think that excellent thing to move forward with, particularly since the July of this year, they will be increasing the stormwater testing requirements in the state of California, which would thereby increase work and in addition to many costs of testing the water. And again, the purpose of the stormwater drainage is usually used in places where there are parking areas and there might be runoff from cars that gets into storm drains. And out at the landfill, there are no vehicle traffic per se or parking. So again, Ted, I was really happy when I saw this.
And I think,
Any additional comments, Commissioner Homie?
just to reassure the public, we continue to monitor the wells around. I mean, we're still watching the quality of the water around our landfill. It's just, the stormwater stuff is really not meant for our kind of closed facility. So I think this is great. It's good news.
Commissioner Gastineau, any comments? Okay, and what we'll do now, we've had this discussion, well, Karen, let's call the vote on this. Is 2.1 discussion, and the action will be to submit a notice of termination under the new statewide industrial general stormwater permit for the Crescent City landfill. Karen, if you would take the vote.
Commissioner Gastineau?
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson?
Yes?
Commissioner Hawley?
Yes.
And Chairman Gitlin?
That would be yes. Moving on, 2.2, discussion, possible action regarding payment or partial payment and possible appeal of invoice number WD 0108569 from the State Water Resources Control Board for the annual permit fee for the Crescent City landfill in the amount of $70,781. Ted, please explain this fee to us.
The sticker shock we are all going
Yes.
through. Yes. This is our annual permit fee for everything except for stormwater monitoring out at the Crescent City landfill, which of course is a closed facility. It closed to the public in 2005, and closure construction was completed in 2006. But we, under the Regional Water Quality Control Board staff assessment, we are a 1A threat and complexity rating. So here I have the definitions of threat to water quality. I believe, and and have argued that I believe a Category 2 is more appropriate for this facility, but we have not been successful in that so far. And here's the complexity ratings. Again, I've argued that we are in a Category B rather than a Category A, and the Regional Water Quality Control Board staff seems to be less flexible on that issue. So it seems to be, if we're going to be successful, it's likely to be granted a 2A status rather than a 2B status. Looking at what our permit fees have done over the last year, so the blue is the 1A category that the landfill is officially in, and the orange is the 2A status. You can see there's a huge difference in these costs, and just so that everybody can relate to this, on the left-hand side I have the total annual fee for this permit, and on the right-hand side I have the per-person cost for everybody living in the county. And so you can see that this year's fee is somewhere about $2.30, $2.35 per person, which seems more than a little excessive. And last, you can see the history of what we've done. First, we paid the amount, and then following this, we submitted a variety of appeals. And the next year, we were able to negotiate paying the 2A rate, plus installing 2 new wells. So we installed the E4 well and the E4 shallow and deep. And then the following year, we paid the full amount in 2 installments. And my recommendation at this point is that we pay the amount of the 2A rate, which is $30,006.25, and then file an additional appeal. I am not yet certain exactly what will be the basis for the appeal, but it's an unacceptable fee amount. We can't just swallow this. We need to at least engage in the discussion, because to pay $70,000 for the amount of permit review and work that is, it's just something we need to fight.
I agree. I would actually make a motion to accept staff recommendation and to do a 2A, pay the fee in the amount of 2A and put an appeal in at the same time, because in reading the class Category 1, I completely agree with you that I don't feel that we fit there. I think maybe our attorney might be able to help us put forward something, because it definitely does not seem as if we are a Category 1.
All right, so Commissioner Wilson has a motion. Do I have a second to Commissioner Wilson's motion? Well, not
Yes,
hearing that.
yes,
Oh, do
I'm
we have a
sorry.
second?
Yes,
Okay.
I second that we proceed this way. I think, I'm concerned, and I'd be curious about how many, this is basically the worst rating in the state of California.
Yeah.
For a closed facility,
for a
it
closed
is.
facility. And I don't see any justification for that.
I totally concur, and it's worth the board's consideration that under the threat and complexity rating, there is no consideration for the size of the facility. There is no consideration for the population base expected to pay this fee. And those are some of our strongest arguments, but unfortunately, there is no criteria by which we can make that pitch, except for we'll do the best we can, and this will be an ongoing discussion.
So we have a motion, and we have a second, and I will open it up for public comment at this time on the agreement or the motion to essentially pay a little less than half the amount. What was the figure again?
The dollar amount is $30,625.
And then appeal the balance. And I'm going to even make the suggestion, is there a criterion we're using to pay this $30,000, or can it be even less, 20 or 15? Or do you think that will hurt our case? And I'm not suggesting that this is not a good thing, but perhaps the board might see about even lowering the amount we pay. Or do you think that would be counterproductive?
I do think it would be counterproductive. I think that positive engagement is the most likely route for success.
All right, so public has been offered the opportunity, so I will call the vote at this time.
I have one more
Oh,
point.
sorry, go ahead, Commissioner.
Is there going to
Gasper.
be, if we do not win the appeal, is there any penalties that we would have to pay the regular price plus on top of that, any fees for penalties for not?
That is a possibility. I believe it's a relatively low likelihood. Every indication I've had from the Regional Water Quality Control Board staff is that they would certainly have this discussion with us rather than going ballistic on enforcement. But this is part of how they make their budget. That's how these fees came about. So it'll be a discussion where all parties are very interested in the outcome.
I'm just curious to know, is there a schedule on what kind of a penalty? Is there a precedent?
Yes, it's-
3%, 1%? If you don't pay in
That's a good
a
question.
certain time and date?
While you're looking, Ted, we did this once before, and I
Yeah, we
don't
did.
think we incurred a penalty.
We did not incur a penalty when we did it
All
before.
right, until arguments are proffered accordingly, that the agency in question, which we're appealing to, does not have, that you're aware of, Ted, a policy of assessing a penalty if you pay in a not prompt manner, appealing the process, I think it makes perfect sense. There's precedent there not to do that.
I believe they do have provisions where they can assess late fees or penalties. I don't have those immediately in front of me, so I'm sorry, I can't tell you
All right.
exactly what the risk is.
Let's call that vote right now, and we'll move.
comment.
I'm sorry, did we offer the public an opportunity to come up? I thought we did that prior to that, so go ahead. Okay, you got to speak up because it's on.
Lee Morrison, I'm in the county. I'm sorry, the landfill, this is drainage from the landfill, I take it, right? Is there someplace I could look this up to research it? And then I also wondered, can you get a reduction if we educate the community, like me, about, what are they're monitoring this, right? And we want to get.
No, this is a conversation we're having, a motion having to do with the payment of an invoice.
Right, of water for,
Okay, so we have a state permit to pay, it's $70,000, which pretty much everybody thinks is an excessive.
70,000 for what, though?
Well, it's a permit to operate, okay, let's get the clear explanation
Sure.
of what this exactly is permit covers.
This is for permit oversight, essentially. And most of the permitting work associated with landfills has to do with the approval of closure plans, of designs and operations and closure plans, and they have a different fee structure for open landfills. But the net result is they still have these fees for the closed facilities. But the closed facilities take a lot less work. They receive the reports, they review the reports. If there's any kind of urgent action, then they respond. But actually, in terms of the level of effort required of the Regional Water Quality Control Board staff, it's relatively low. And so, in some ways, there's certainly the question of, is this a good value for our community? And unfortunately, it's hard for me to support this level of expense for the value to the community.
Ms. Morrison,
But that doesn't mean that we're going to stop monitoring the water quality out at the landfill or stop reporting on it. None of those things are stopping. We will continue to monitor, we will continue to report. This is just assessing what is the permit fees that we have to pay on an annual basis.
Exactly. And I understand that. And my one little point was, well, $70,000, that's just nothing if you're treating a cancer patient, okay? But if everybody is aware of that, I was talking to Dr. Duncan, he took a bike ride out by one of the lakes, and he took a picture of all the garbage that was accumulating there. And you know how you have maybe, just off the top of my head, but a hotline for the police, if there was a hotline, so we could show these people that want to charge us $70,000.
okay, let me just interrupt you just for a second, Connie. These are all good questions, but they're not relative to the fact that we're going to do the monitoring, but there is a fee involved. And this is what this discussion, so I'd like to keep the discussion
I was just trying to think of a
narrow.
way to
And I think
reduce
your
it.
suggestions, by the way, are good ones, but we will need to take that up under a separate matter. I would be happy to have this very discussion that you're bringing up agendized for the next meeting, if you wish, and then we can address it. But I would like to keep this streamlined only to this permit fee and how we pay it. Okay? Now, having said that, are there any other public comments? And I appreciate I hope you understand, I'm not trying to be abrupt. I'd just like to keep. Well, no, this is a discussion about whether we pay a fee of $70,000 and some change, or do we pay it in a different way and appeal the balance? That's what this discussion is about. Not about what we are going. The monitoring will continue. Is that correct, Mr. Ward? So that's not going. Now, are there any other public comments? Okay, hearing none, then I will ask for the vote. Karen, if you would, please. This is on the motion to pay per Commissioner Wilson's motion? Or was it yours?
Yes, I was
Okay,
recommending.
having to
what
do with
staff-
paying at a different, not the full amount. Go ahead.
Commissioner Hawley?
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson?
Yes.
Commissioner Gastineau?
Yes.
And Chairman Gitlin?
Yes. All right, now I see our CDD Department and Code Enforcement Officer here, so I'm going to take something out of order so we can maximize everybody's time. This is item number,
5-1.
let's see.
5.1, sir?
Is it 5.1? Yes, okay. And we're going to skip over 4.1 at this time and come back to it. Now, 5.1 is a discussion and possible action regarding a request for a report from the Delaware County Community Development Department for funding needs for fiscal year 2015-2016 for code enforcement and blight removal abatement. Now, after a brief explanation, Mr. Ward, I would like to invite our blight officer to address this and/or our community development director, Heidi Kunsthal, to address this in their needs, what you are needing for next year. So if you would explain that at this time.
This is actually a regular activity of our budgeting process, and we have informal meetings with other departments that rely on the services of the Solid Waste Authority, either through emptying city dumpsters or providing services to the county, and blight and code enforcement is certainly part of that. So normally, this would already be a conversation that we would have in the preparation of our budget.
So it's just premature.
I'd be happy to hear what Heidi and Dave have to say.
So I'd like to invite Heidi, if you would, please. We're on tape, so let us know who you are. And then what are the exigent circumstances under which we're having this discussion now as, say, let's say 30 days from now? So,
Well, I think we're dealing with our exigent circumstances that you may be speaking of. My name is Heidi Kunsthal, and I'm the county's Community Development Director. And I'd just like to say that we would definitely take Ted up on his offer to have a meeting with him prior to the preparation of the authority's 15-16 budget. And then if we have any questions to follow up, we would report back at your kickoff meeting for your 15-16 budget if we had any differences.
okay, that would be, except as far as I'm concerned, we're pushing this up because frankly, there's maybe a little shortage of money in trying to do the things that we expect this community expects us to do. Is that what?
Yes, you may be seeing us again, but right now we're not prepared to talk about that.
I understand. Okay. Now, having said that, Code Enforcement Officer Mason, is there anything else you'd like to contribute to this presentation at this time?
Oh, just for clarification, for those that may not be aware, a supervisor cannot direct staff to prepare a report for the board. It requires a
So that's
formal
why
request, and this is just a formal request, us to prepare the report. We're just dotting i's and crossing t's in the administrative policy and procedure manual at this point. That's all it is, really.
Very clear. Okay. Go ahead.
I'm not sure at this point if we need anything so formal as a report. I think that we will know that after we have our first meeting with
So we don't
with
need to
Ted.
take any action at this time.
No, I think as far as direction, or just acknowledgement of the fact that we are interested in working with the authority to try to find
Okay.
some solutions that I think would be helpful for our community.
Okay. So having said that, I don't think we need to have any public discussion. We're moving things forward at a little quicker pace, and that's a good thing. Okay? That's it. Okay. All right, so let's move on, and thank you very much, Heidi, and thank you very much, Dave, for coming in and making that presentation to us. All right, let's go back to 4.1. 5.1 has been handled. 4.1 is a discussion, possible action regarding submitting a notice of intent for recertification. Keep hearing that word recertification, it's ringing in my head, and possibly a no exposure recertification under the new statewide industrial stormwater permit for Delaware County Transfer Station. Now, this is an either or again, Ted?
It's actually clearer than the last one, sorry.
Okay.
In that I would recommend that we submit both a notice of intent for recertification and, if possible, a no exposure certification. If the no exposure certification, which is an option that was not available under the previous stormwater permit, if that was approved, that would also reduce our overall monitoring costs for monitoring and reporting on stormwater. And like I said, I did include that in my conversation with Paul Kieran, and he seems to think that that would be the best way to go. And he was familiar with our transfer station, and he said, this is pretty close to a direct quote, "Gosh, it's just about the cleanest transfer station I've ever been to." So he believes that the no exposure certification will likely go through because, in part, because our stormwater from the transfer station does not directly discharge to the stormwater system. Typically, it goes through oil water separators and goes through retention ponds, and usually does not hit the stormwater system at all. It just exfiltrates through those basins. But I will provide more details on that as we submit this no exposure certification. There, of course, is not necessarily any guarantee that they accept the no exposure certification, and it might be that we're just have the extra monitoring requirements under the new stormwater permit. But it's unlike the landfill. A notice of termination, I'd say, has no possibility of approval for the transfer station because of our activities there, but no exposure certification might have a chance.
Excellent.
Okay, before we move on, let me entertain a motion. Is there someone who wishes to make a motion? So get clarification. What is the action you're calling for? At this time?
I'm calling for directing staff to submit a notice of intent for recertification and pursuing a no exposure certification under the new statewide industrial general stormwater permit for the Delaware County Transfer.
All right, do I have a motion?
I'll agree with that motion.
Okay, we have a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Chair, I
Do we
just have
have a
another point of order. I would rather take public comment before a
You want to do
motion.
public?
A motion is so we can hear from the public if need be before a motion is
Okay,
cast.
I've heard it done both ways. I have no problem in holding off. So we have a motion, but we do not have a second. So let's get the public input on here. Does the public wish to address this issue before we entertain a second? Okay, having no comment from the public, I will now ask for a second. Okay, is that a second, Mr. Commissioner Gastineau?
I will second.
Okay, now, let's go back to board comment at this time and for discussion. Is there one of the, do our commissioners have anything they wish to add with regard to this action, submitting a notice of intent for recertification and possibly a no exposure certification under the new statewide industrial general stormwater permit for the Delaware County Transfer Station?
I don't know the circumstances why you spoke with Mr. Kiernan, but excellent work on, moving forward with this. It'll save the community a ton of money, and, didn't know that there was something available like this to move ahead with. I would suggest that when you do address these, you might send them directly through a friendly, person, if he's the one that put his name on it, or, just personalize it as much as you can and send it along. But that's just excellent. It'll save us a lot of money
Commissioners, any additional comments?
in unneeded tests.
Hearing none, I will then call for the vote on 4.1.
Commissioner Wilson?
Yes?
Commissioner Hawley?
Yes.
Commissioner Gastineau?
Yes.
And Chairman Gitlin?
That would be yes. Okay, now I'm going to take a couple of things out of order since we have some issues here that I'd like to continue to act in chair on, and we'll do the, so let's take 5.2 and move it to the end of the category and move on to 5.3, discussion and possible action regarding Resolution 2015-01 modifying bylaws and meeting dates. Ted?
Bylaws, and so essentially, in order to change the regular meeting date for the authority, we need to modify the bylaws. I included the bylaws in the packet, and there are a number of things to revise in the bylaws, but to try to focus this discussion is all about the meeting date. And there is a resolution attached that is sort of a fill-in-the-blanks resolution to identify the meeting date. I did do an informal survey of the commissioners to see what dates worked, and there's not a single common date that works for everybody.
Let me just interrupt you just for a second. I would like you to explain to the audience the why, the 25th letter of the alphabet, the why we are switching the dates, because I don't think the audience and our public is understanding what this resolution is all about to change the dates. So please tell us what your reasoning is.
Well, of course, at this point, the date has not been changed, but Commissioner McClure, who was appointed by the Delaware County Board of Supervisors to serve as a commissioner to the Delaware Solid Waste Management Authority, is not able to attend meetings, she's informed me, during the second week of the month, because she has a commitment to serve on the California Coastal Commission, which meets during that week. And so she's requested that in our conversations, as I was reviewing the briefing packet with her, she's requested that we consider altering the date to a meeting date that she can attend.
I understand. Okay, now, having heard the reasoning behind this, I'm now going to open this up to the public and to have a discussion on the public's wish to opine on this decision to change our meeting dates. Anybody from the public wish to approach the dais and speak? Okay, please identify yourself. And this is on issue number 5.3, discussion possible action regarding resolution 2015, modifying the laws and the meeting dates.
Well, Donna Westfall, 937 J Street, Crescent City, and I just think it's ridiculous to modify the meeting date for one commissioner. That's it.
Okay, very good. Are there any other public comments? Closing that discussion with the public and opening it up to the board, what's your discussion before we entertain a motion? Tell commissioners, please feel free to chime in.
I can start, because I've given this a lot of thought, actually. And I think it's important for us to have 5 members on this board. I think we're functioning with 4, but 5 certainly is better, especially we wouldn't want to short the county and their membership. In anticipation of this discussion, I have been in touch with Supervisor McClure and tried to figure out a time when we might be able to do it. Because it's not without precedent that we've changed it. We had a 10-member board that moved from Wednesday to Tuesday for a whole year, I think. We met at a whole different time. So, and I've been on other committees and commissions in which we do modify the meeting times to accommodate the people on the dais. And that said, I did talk with Mrs. McClure a little bit, and I thought about it over time. I thought, well, what could we do? And then I remembered that back when we had the 10-member board, we met after the Board of Supervisors meetings because people didn't have other meeting conflicts that day because the supervisors were already meeting. So I asked Mrs. McClure about that, and she said, well, it wouldn't work on the second week, but it would work on the second meeting of the month at the Board of Supervisors for her, because she has to take off for her meeting on that prior Tuesday on the second week, but on the fourth week it would work. So I was wondering if we could land on that your second Board of Supervisors day. Is it the fourth?
Second and fourth Tuesday.
Fourth Tuesday at 4 o'clock. I was wondering if that would work, because my assumption is you probably don't have other meetings at that time. That's what I was.
Board comments?
I do remember that when it was after the Board of Supervisors, Commissioner Sullivan just found that it was a very long day, and the meetings sometimes here go very, very long, and he felt that he was, for the term, kind of clocked out or wiped out a bit because of the day. So that's why it did get moved from that day, if you were wondering, at that point in time, just because it made it too long a day to really go over all the detail that is often entailed in this.
Commissioner Gastineau, any comments?
I'm a little bit torn on it. I mean, yeah, to rearrange our schedules, we all have more meetings than we really should. And every time that we try to rearrange, even for this board to go just for a different time, has been difficult. But, I understand that we definitely need to have a county representative in that 4th or 5th spot. So I am torn on it a little bit.
Well, I do have an opinion also. I'm a little troubled by the fact that Supervisor McClure has accepted an assignment which immediately causes a conflict. I understand that the option is there to either decline or accept, and I would say that by coming in and saying, I'm your representative, you need to make these changes, is troubling to me. It also creates a ripple effect, as you just mentioned, and I went through my calendar and I am telling you that I have a very busy schedule. I'm not going to apologize for it. Every commitment I make, whether it's Visitors Bureau, whether it's the Area 1 Agency on Aging, North Coast Unified Air Quality Management District, I take very seriously. One is not more important than the other. They're all important. So I'm having some issues on that. So I'll entertain a motion at this time if there is one.
I would make a motion that we meet on the 4th Tuesday at 4 o'clock.
Do we have a second to that? Hearing, yes, no?
I'll second that.
Okay. All right, board discussion? Okay.
I would have to check my calendar on that. And I don't,
Don't have a calendar in front of me, 4th Tuesday of the month?
I didn't bring my calendar. I submitted it via email.
Okay, well, all right, so we have a motion and we have a second, and okay, if there's no other board comment, then I'll call for the vote. Okay, so,
Oh, wait, I might have to withdraw my second, because we have city agenda review on Tuesdays.
like I said, this is something that is a very troubling thing. It creates a ripple effect. Before we do these things, we need to, I've already gone through that process, and I've spent a lot of hours looking at trying to manipulate this schedule and that schedule, and it's one creates another problem for me. So we have a motion and we have a second, and we certainly can vote on it.
I'm going to withdraw my second.
Okay, so now we do not have a second.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I did consult with Kylie to look at when the supervisors' chambers was available, and looking at the input that I received from the commissioners. And the two dates that seemed to have potential were the 4th Thursday, which is available, and the 1st Tuesday, which is available.
These are Greek numbers to me since what did you say now, the 4th?
The 4th Thursday of the month and the 1st Tuesday of the month are two dates that are available.
And I will confirm that with Supervisor McClure, she said that first week is usually okay.
Well, we have a motion right now that does not involve those 2 days.
It was withdrawn.
Okay, so we don't have it. All right, I'll entertain another motion.
I'm sorry, the first week was what?
First Tuesday? No, yes, 1st Tuesday and the 4th Thursday. Yes,
I could do it.
What,
I-
both days?
Either
I
will
can do
work
it
for
both
me.
days.
Okay, now the fourth Thursday, let's do, what did you say for the first Tuesday? Okay, so let's see the first Tuesday, which, I've got a conflict there. I'm looking at March, and I'm looking at, sometimes meetings are overlapping. I have A1, A1AA, and then let's see, what was the other one? The 4th Thursday? And we're talking about, can we do a morning meeting? Is there a possibility of doing a morning meeting on the first Tuesday or the 4th Thursday?
No, I'll be working.
I'm not available on either of those 2 days at this time. Commissioner Wilson?
I don't have my calendar for that. I remember the first week, but I'm sorry, I can't comment on that one. I think the first week was okay, but Tuesday.
Well, this is going to be a real lesson in mental gymnastics. It's creating an issue that I'm not quite sure that is surmountable.
Could we advise Mr. Ward to go back to the chair of the Board of Supervisors to maybe reconsider the appointment of the county commissioner for the solid waste?
Now, I'll certainly entertain a motion. This is an open discussion. This is government in action. Is that a motion, Mr. Gaston?
I don't know if it's more of a motion or direction, but I want to get the rest of the board on top.
It's a suggestion. I want to get some consensus from our authority, so before we start.
If that was a question to me, Commissioner Gastineau, I would instead suggest that once the authority selects a chair for the coming year, that perhaps you might set a single item special meeting where all the appointed commissioners can meet together and discuss potential future meeting dates.
I think that would work.
Well, we're going to have that discussion afterward. Okay, so let's have that discussion. But for right now, issue number 5.3 seems to be at an impasse.
I move that we table this to another meeting or to a special meeting.
Well, let's wait for the new chair at this point.
Right.
But we'll deal with it at this point, that we don't have a consensus at this point to find that direction. So
I withdraw my
5.3
motion.
is no action. Okay.
Can I just follow up on that just a little bit, because we're all here, and it's so hard to coordinate even a special meeting, because the assumption is if we can't get together for a regular meeting, how can it be any easier to get together for
Well,
a special
Sunday at
one?
midnight works for me, but that's a different story.
We can do it on a Saturday. We can, is there a date that we could set that meeting? I mean, that you can think of?
Well, let's do this. Let's go this at this point. 5.3, I feel it is an impasse that is moving in an area where we have a lot of question marks that are filtering the air. So at this point, we'll do our elections after the fact, and then whoever that new chair is, then it'll be your province to do that, or that person's province. I mean, I don't know what to do. What are you suggesting? That we do this?
That's fine.
5.3?
I guess I was only suggesting that for a one-time meeting, if anyone has any 4 o'clock time in the first or third week of now we're in March. Is there any 4 o'clock available for all the four of us during that?
Okay, now I've heard the fourth Thursday and I've heard the first Tuesday.
Those are the days the room's available, so that's the problem. He's got something on Tuesday, and so but for a special meeting, you'll have to use this room.
We can find a different room. I mean,
Yeah, that's the problem. So you could use any room, and that would open it up a lot more,
okay.
right?
It would.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if our availability is, if we have any sense of what that is. I'm just trying to save time for later.
I understand. I'm pretty free that first week, March, and then on the fourth week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Roger, do you have any feelings?
I'm looking at my February schedule, and it's filled up. I mean, now I'm looking at March, and I have something scheduled on that fourth Thursday. It's just very difficult to go through this in this meeting. I have to study it some more.
Very good. So
But it creates,
We'll move along.
Commissioner Hawley, it creates this ripple effect of, okay, if you take this meeting or a specific time, it may be a time when I've been doing as a creature of habit, having meetings up in my office to meet with constituents at a certain time. Now that has to be changed, and then I have to find another time to do that. That's my issue on some of these dates. It's very difficult when you have, and I'm sure you can appreciate this, I know you went through this with Tri-Agency, struggling to find a date that was common to all you all.
That's true.
So this is not something that can be micro-surgery, so to speak, and I would say that it needs to be reviewed. It needs to be examined again. I cannot, at those questions at this time, give you an answer, yes, I can do that. Okay, so 5.3, we are not going to take any action on at this time. Okay, now moving forward, let's move to 5.4, and this is the discussion. I see we have people here in the audience with regard to this discussion regarding possible release of the forensic audit dated 16 July 2013 by Donald Scanlon, who has since passed away. So Ted, if you would, please.
This is a report that was completed some time ago. It was a forensic audit looking at missing monies, and it was the cause that made this referred to the Sheriff's Department. There is currently an open criminal investigation and this report has been handed over to the Sheriff's Department. My understanding is that investigation has not been closed, and further information about this issue has always been referred to the Sheriff's Department, as they are the ones handling the investigation.
Okay, now, so that the public is aware, as a result of missing monies, this authority voted to hire a specialist, a forensic accountant by the name of Donald Scanlon, who did a full review of the Solid Waste Authority's books, and he wrote a 2 or 3 page confidential report. Now, the board has made this, the authority has made this confidential. It is not public. Mr. Scanlon has now passed away, and the request has come in that we wish to make this not unlike the sheriff's report, which is also available for review. You can't sit there and take it out, but the sheriff, this is the precedent which we're using, the Sheriff's Department's open report is available to anybody in the public who wishes to come in and view the report. They may not take their report with them, but they can sit in a conference room and they can read the report. So the suggestion has come to us to see if we wish to release our report under similar sets of circumstances. And so I'll entertain it right now, and I'll go right to the public. So public, this is your opportunity to stand up, identify yourself, and tell me, tell the board what is your feeling about seeing this report. And please identify yourself and city or county resident.
Donna Westfall, city resident. About 4 years ago, Charles Slurt and I attended a solid waste task force meeting, became aware of the problem, and the problem was the handling of cash and cash accounting. That was being done in pencil, which was a huge red flag to me. From that time to 2012, nothing was done to change the system. So it was no surprise to me to hear about missing money, which subsequently became the basis for the sheriff's investigation.
Ms. Westfall, I'm going to just interrupt your thoughts, and please tell you, this is strictly a Donald Scanlon release of report only, not the contents or not anything else. Tell us your reasoning, because you were the one who came to me as one of my constituents, and you asked me to place this on the agenda. Tell me your reasons for wanting to see this report.
Well, I reviewed this memo from legal counsel, Martha Rice, that the investigative detective concluded that there was financial embezzlement, but the evidence was not sufficient to name a suspect or suspects. But when I reviewed the report at the Sheriff's Department, there were 2 suspects named, Kevin Hendricks and Ellen Brown, who were both employees of the Solid Waste Management. And so then I learned that former Detective Bob Barber never interviewed Kevin Hendricks. I put a call in to Kevin Hendricks, and I tried calling Ellen Brown. I could not reach either one. Neither has returned my calls. And so I think it's only fair for us to know what the Don Scanlon report reveals so that we can follow up with this.
Okay. Thank you very much. Is that completion of your request?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any other members of the public who wish to come up and speak to the authority on your wish to see this report, which is a public document paid with public monies, but at the same time, this authority has ruled it to be a confidential item until such time it chooses not to make it confidential and release it, which it may or may not do today. This is up to this authority. Are there any other public comments? Identify
Connie
yourself, please.
Morrison, and I'm aware that there was questions of embezzlement with Officer Garcia. There's embezzlement with a probation officer. There was embezzlement.
Okay, Connie, I'm going to interrupt you, and this is what I'm asking for. I'm not going to entertain discussions on allegations that are not part of this discussion here. We're simply talking about the release of the Donald Scanlon report.
But every investigation should be transparent.
Okay, that's clear. That's clear to me. And please don't misinterpret my abruptness. I realize that there are other tangential issues. We simply want to have this discussion on the release of the document written by Don
That
Scanlon.
that sounds like a vote. Everybody want to vote yes. I'm just saying, this county is just, it's replete with all kinds of corruption.
Right. Any other public comments? Okay, seeing that, we will close public comments at this time, and I will bring it back to the board for discussion.
I've thought a lot about this, and I've gone back and reviewed Mr. Scanlon's report a number of times. There's nothing horribly inflammatory in it. It certainly, it kind of takes to task the authorities, I won't say mismanagement, but the authority shared some responsibilities for some of these things. And so that's not a feel-good moment for us, but that's not my concern. My concern is I don't want our release of this document to in any way poison any possibility of holding whoever did it accountable. To that end, I did contact the sheriff's office today and ask them, will this somehow poison the well if this report is released? Does that do anything? Is there any further investigation going on? And they couldn't get back to me with an answer today. They did say that they would contact the district attorney and see if they had anything pending. So you know, having been a probation officer myself, I know that ordinarily when you do an investigation, you really don't want other factors brought in, especially when you're dealing with beyond a reasonable doubt kinds of standards. And so I have some concerns with releasing it at this point until I get clarity on that.
Understand. Any other comments from the authority? Commissioner Gastineau or Commissioner Wilson?
I also went back and reviewed the report, and again, I feel comfortable making it available for the public to read, and we could do the same thing that the sheriff's office did. You know, if there were outstanding, maybe legal, someone, you know, bringing some suit or something, I would say that wouldn't be a good you know, we would have to keep it closed. I don't see any reason not to open it up. Again, there were no direct fingers pointed because there was a lack of evidence, and it also explains about how some of the records were not available and that they had been, you know, shredded. And so there wasn't enough proof to, anyway, so I don't want to say what's in there until we vote on this, but I personally feel fine with opening it up.
Commissioner Gastineau.
Yeah, I mean, you know, of course, it's an unfortunate thing that happened in the past, and we've corrected our money handling efforts at the authority. And I can see opening it up to, you know, be more transparent in government, and so I wouldn't be opposed to having the public be able to see it.
Okay, I have an opportunity to opine on this too. And without discussing what's in the report, which is the very reason we're here, we're not here to give you little tidbits right now. Well, I don't think this is a bad thing, or this is okay, or this. I don't want to make an opinion on what is in this 3-page report. It's one person's opinion, and he has a bunch of letters in back of his name. And this is his opinion. Now, whether it's in some people's minds not harmful or in other people's minds damning is really not the issue. And I'm gonna consent with the Commissioner Gastineau on this about this issue of transparency. That if we don't do this, there is a clear reason, and I don't have one now, as to not being transparent, because that's what we're about. We're about being transparent. We don't want to hold, I personally am repulsed by anything that's held back from public purview. So I don't have any issue with releasing the report under certain circumstances. This is not something where we're making 100 copies and you can come in and get your copy. That's not how I would do it. I mean, I would do it with the understanding that it can be available for review at the solid waste office, and it would be something that would be done with a conference room and you can read it. And then the public has access to it. Failing to do that raises many other questions as to the 25th letter of the alphabet. What have you got to hide in there? Well, I don't have anything to hide. And I want to make that very clear that we are. So I'm going to opine on the side of Commissioner Gastineau and agree with that. So having said that, we've had board comment, we've had board discussion, we've had public input. I will ask for the vote on this time. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Do we have a motion? Thank you. To release the report this time.
I'll make a motion to release the forensic audit report by Don Scanlon dated July 16, 2013, to the public for their purview with the same conditions that the Sheriff's Department has, that it be held at the Solid Waste Authority office, and that members of the public can come in to read this report, but not to take copies or take it out.
Okay. Do I have a second to that motion?
I will second that.
We have a motion and we have a second, and we've had discussion. So if there's no further discussion on this, I will call for the vote at this time. Karen?
Commissioner Wilson?
Yes?
Commissioner Hawley?
No?
Commissioner Gastineau?
Yes.
Chairman Gitlin?
Yes. Okay, that completes that item. The Scanlon report will be made public on the basis of the motion discussed, and we will move on to, I'm going to do 5.5 real quickly, and then we'll move into elections. So 5.5, receive and file 1314 audit, Del Norte Solid Waste Management Authority by Smith and Newell. And Ted, if you would, please.
This is the final audit for the previous fiscal year provided by Smith & Newell. Did incorporate our response to comments and our corrective actions.
Okay. Public comment? Hearing none, closing that. Board comments?
Okay, let's see. So let me get my notes together here. Again, let me see here. Excuse me, I'll go to the key page for anyone in business would be the statement of revenues and expenses. And so that's on page 5 of the report. And in taking a look at this report, what typically what I would do is to compare it to the prior year and the direction that the authority is going. And in doing so, there's a couple things I wanted to note on this report. Again, is that the auditor doesn't include the $242,000 franchise fees in the operating income. It has to be added in later, and it shows really that we have a net change in position for this year of $18,000 loss. And I felt that that was basically good news, that we've had some significant changes, particularly in the landfill post-closure expenses were very high, and some of the fees to the state as well. The one that, again, to me jumps out the most significantly is something that we kind of worked on a bit this time. And basically back in 2012, we were able to show positive change in assets by the tune of almost $400,000, $399,000. And that, again, was because we were able to reduce the complexity rating, and that dropped our liability. And I just wanted to, again, bring forward how important that is, that what Mr. Ward has been working on, that we would continue along that vein. So I just wanted, again, to note it's very similar to last year. There's some changes between the lines. The big changes happened because of that reduction to our liability. And all in all, I felt that it was very similar to the reports given before. I know we keep getting dinged because he says we should have insurance, but we've made the discussion on this board, we've decided that it's not worth it, and we've agreed with staff. So I think that the audit turned out, again, pretty status quo, and with the additional expenses we've had because of the state, it was very significant, and I think that we're going along okay. So I do think, though, sometime in the future, again, we need to, in doing my 10-year analysis, the amount of money that the change from seems to be that we're either going to need to increase rates down the road or cut costs, because again, as time goes along, it seems as if we're making less and less money with this organization. But right now, we're okay, but we do need to look to the future. I just would ask everyone on this board to keep that in mind.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Wilson. Other board comments? Okay. I would also say, and I would ask the question to Ted, does this $18,000 loss reflect the $33,000 purchase of the R3 report? Would that be reflective in this?
Yep.
Yes, that's absolutely included.
So we would actually show black ink had we not ordered 33,000, I think the amount was 33,000 for R3, that would actually show in the black.
Or they're $5,000 out to Don Scanlon.
And also, thank you for reminding me that. So there's almost $40,000 worth of costs reflected in that $18,000 loss. Now, having said that, I'll entertain a motion to direct staff to file, is this what you're asking for, receive and file for fiscal year? Now, before I do that, Mr. Taylor, is there something you would like to address in this, or do you wish to put this as part of your treasurer's report? Do you wish to address? Treasurer's report. Okay, very good. So I'll entertain a motion to receive that.
So moved.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, and any further board discussion? Karen, if you would call the roll.
Commissioner Hawley?
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson?
Yes.
Commissioner Gastineau?
Yes.
Chairman Gitlin?
Yes. Okay, so we're going to come down to the last in 5.1. What did Nixon say years ago? You won't have Nixon to kick around anymore? I had to throw that in. 1962 when he ran for governor and he didn't make it, and so that's just my, I thought I had to use that someplace. So it's a call, it's a moving over, a discussion on possible action regarding election of authority chair and vice chair. Ted, do you need to explain this to us, or can we just move forward? And
I think it really is advantageous to have officers, and chair is among the most important. I work with the chair and the vice chair to set the agenda, and I understand that, there's meeting issues and not all commissioners are present, but it would be very helpful to have a chair.
it's another thing we've had to move around when we have our pre-agenda meetings, and not here and not there, and Commissioner Hawley is at the League of Cities, and I'm at CSAC, or something like that. So, it gets more challenging as we go. So I'll entertain a motion for a new chair.
I nominate Mr. Commissioner Honorable Richard Hawley to be the chair of the Solid Waste Management Authority.
I'll second.
Okay, now, are these separate set again things before we open it up to the public? Is the chair and the vice chair at the same time, or is these separate actions?
Separate.
Okay, all right. Public, do we have a second? Yes, sir? This is for Chairman designee Richard Hawley. Okay.
Is there like public comment?
Well, we're going to have a discussion on this, so we have public go in this.
Yes, I believe that Rosenberg's Rules of Order call for public comment before you have the motion, but I wholly support Mr. Hawley being the chair, and I believe that it'd be wise or prudent to wait until you have a full board before you elect the vice chair, which is why I'm getting up and speaking now. I'd also believe that we could possibly have a new public member, possibly, and I'd like to introduce Alex Fallman, who will be applying for that position. he's sitting next to me,
Well,
so,
this is not per the subject, this is on the election only, so let's stay on the election, and we can do the introductions at another
Well,
issue.
well,
Another time.
it's not on the agenda, which is why I'm mentioning it. Don't take offense against him because he's sitting next to me.
I'm taking no offense on anyone. No, I have no offense on anyone.
But-
It's not, we're talking about election of officers, not introduction of new public employees.
Well, there's
so-
no place on the agenda to
Well, let's
mention
place
it.
it, then we can place it on the agenda. I think, Commissioner, City Councilman Murray, you know how the process works, we'd have to agendize it, and then we'll put it on there and have a very robust, open discussion, and I know Mr. Falwell well, and welcome in.
Fallman.
Fallman, yes.
Yes, all right.
And we'll go from there,
So anyway, I totally support Mr. Holly being chair, and I think it'd be wise to hold off on voting for the vice chair until you have a full board, is why I'm mentioning it now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comments? Hearing none, we'll close that and we'll take the vote. Okay, any further discussion on Councilwoman Murray's suggestion? Or do we wish to move forward?
Let's just take a vote on Mr. Hall.
On the chair.
So this will be for the chair. Okay, Karen, if you would, please, for Mr. Holly.
Commissioner Hawley?
Well,
I figured you'd like that.
yes.
There's no grandstanding allowed, sir.
Commissioner Gastineau?
For sure,
Commissioner
yes.
Wilson? Commissioner Wilson?
Yes?
And Chairman Gitlin?
Yes, and no campaign
Thank you.
signs allowed. Okay, that moved on, we'll move on to vice
Oh,
chair.
is it 5.2? I wanted to nominate Roger Gitlin for vice chair.
Okay,
All around 5.
board discussion, public discussion, let's open it up again.
Catherine Murray, a resident in the city and the county. As I said, I believe it'd be prudent to wait until you have a full board, until you nominate a vice chair. Thank you.
Any other additional public comments? Closing it back, bringing it back to the board. I accept if so chosen, and then we'll take the vote on that.
Do we have a motion
Wait,
and a second?
Was there a
Is there-
second?
I don't think we have a second, and I might have to agree. In continuity, to have Commissioner McClure here would be a good thing to have the vote for the vice chair, so I will not second.
You're no second. Well, I guess I have an opportunity, and I will second that. So we do have a motion, and we have a second.
Yeah. Is now the time to make a substitute motion? Can we make a substitute motion at this point? It's been moved and seconded. I'd like to make a substitute motion that we wait for the fifth member of the board before selecting a vice chair.
I will second that.
Okay. Public comments? Okay. Seeing none, we'll close that off. And the substitute motion will be to wait, and we'll take a vote on that at this time. Karen? Those of you who are, if you're voting yes, you're delaying it, and if you're voting no, it moves forward. Okay.
Commissioner Gastineau?
Yes.
Commissioner Hawley?
Yes?
Commissioner Wilson?
No.
And Commissioner Gitlin?
No, so it does not pass. And we move forward to the original motion, and we'll move forward on that.
Hang on 1 second, please. On the motion with regard to Commissioner Gitlin being the vice chairman, Commissioner Wilson?
Yes?
Commissioner Hawley?
For the reasons previously stated, no.
Commissioner Gastineau?
No.
And Chairman Gitlin?
Yes. So we have a poker deck there, too. So this will effectively have to be tabled to the next meeting for vice chair. Okay, now, having said that, Mr. Chairman, welcome aboard. It's your meeting.
Great, thanks a lot. And thank you for the work you did this last year.
Okay.
That was a long year for you.
And here's yours, you can sign your checks.
I don't think I'm on the
Officially.
account yet. So I guess we take off with item
six.
6. Okay, directors and treasurers reports. Agenda item 8.1 through 8.5 are provided for our information. 6.1, Acting Director's Report. Mr.
Well, first of all, I'd like to apologize for mentioning 8.1 and 8.5, as it was really intended to refer to 6.1 through 6.5. I'll try to fix that at the next agenda. It was just a carryover from an older agenda. So, Director's Report, activities that occurred during the last year, I'll just highlight again. There's more detail in the written report, which I assume that everybody reviews. We updated our fire response plan during the last month. I conducted sampling of stormwater at the landfill. We continue to have ongoing sampling challenges. For instance, the last few rounds of water sampling at the landfill have been delayed because we essentially, county staff is stretched pretty thin, and I look to the county staff to help with the water quality monitoring, and so we're monitoring again coming month, even though that monitoring was supposed to be done in January. I also completed quarterly gas monitoring at the landfill. I attended a CPR training. We've activated our charge authorization program at the authority offices. So now customers who are interested in coming into the office and paying with a credit or a debit card, we can now process them through the office. I continue to try to enter the water quality monitoring data. There's a specific program called GeoTracker that I'm new to and still in that process, so that's not yet complete. Couple things I want to let you know regarding this happened since the publication of this report, which of course we had the severe storms and the power outage. And so on a very rare event, the Delmarva County Transfer Station was actually opened late. We opened at 10 a.m. instead of 9 a.m. on the Saturday, and that was because the power was out. Now, we do have a backup battery system that unfortunately failed, and so I've met with Clark Moore, and we have a cost estimate for fixing that. Because normally what happens is when the power goes out, the power backup provides power to the gatehouse computer and the scales. And so essentially we're still open for business. But without having operational scales, I just had confidence that the power would be back soon enough that it was worth waiting rather than starting to measure by the cubic yard and opening that way. So only an hour delay there. We also had a half-hour delay at the Klamath transfer station because a tree fell across the access road. Again, sort of an executive decision. I had a choice of either renting a saw and going down there and handling it myself, or trusting our good Klamath customers, which is what ended up happening. And less than a half hour later, a customer came in who was highly motivated to use the services, happened to have a chainsaw, and so removed enough of the impediment to open for business. So thanks to the Klamath customer. I didn't get his name, but I sure appreciate that assistance. I've made Lisa Babcock our permanent administrative assistant, which is a great help. She's been a tremendous asset during this challenging last year, and I think she's going to continue to do great work for us. And we have submitted the paperwork, and we now have an open account clerk position. And so we were hiring for an account clerk, and that's of course open to authority employees to apply for as well. But we're going through a formal application process, and we're receiving applicants. We do have damaged fencing out at the landfill, plus some damaged well casings. I'll show you that here. So you can see that's a fence that is a little too open. So we need to fix that, and I'll be meeting with a repairman from Two Guys, getting a cost estimate for those repairs. On February 3rd, we had another surprise cash count. So once again, thanks to Lisa Babcock and Kathy Brewer and other people helping with our account staff, we came down to the penny once again. The fifth time in a row, surprise cash count came down to the penny. This is very strong evidence that our fiscal controls are working, and that while the Scanlon report is available to the public, I think it's really important that part of that discussion be that happened several years ago. And since that time, we've implemented a number of fiscal controls that are managing those same issues that were causes for concern. And so I think it's really important to recognize that that is a historical document, and it is not where the story ends.
Well said. Thank you.
So regarding contract management and oversight, during the coming year, we'll be having a discussion about securing additional disposal capacity. Under the rules set by and administered by CalRecycle, the California body that looks over our shoulders on such things, there's a requirement that we have 15 years of secured disposal capacity available to us. Now, that is done through a direct agreement between Hambro, WSG, and the Dry Creek landfill. We are a third-party beneficiary to that agreement, so that if, for some reason, heaven forbid, something goes sour in our relationship and we part ways, that is transferable to whoever we contract for the operations of the transfer station. That is, without a doubt, the authority's disposal capacity. But it is Hambro's contract, so it's something that we all need to engage in a positive way to try to negotiate additional capacity. Right now, our capacity expires in March 2030, and so now is the time to negotiate for additional capacity. And we'll be discussing what our options are, what our negotiated points are, and how we'll approach those negotiations at future meetings. Additional activities on the to-do list coming up. So I'm attaining repair estimates for some of the damage out there. I plan on conducting grading activities, which are, again, a little bit overdue. Working on management of expired marine flares. You have attached to the director's report minutes from those meetings. And of course, follow up to what happened at this meeting. So I'll be submitting the notice of termination and the notice of intents to recertify regarding the stormwater monitoring, and working on developing an appeal. I assume that's the way things were going, so I will be working on that appeal in the coming month. And also attached to the director's report is our current staffing chart since, there we go. Yeah. Now this is not, this shows, it doesn't show up very well here, but we have dotted lines around the vacant director position and dotted lines around the vacant account clerk position. So we're hiring this. Lisa is now our administrative assistant. On this side, we have our contractors. So we've got Rich Taylor as treasurer controller, Karen Phillips providing our recording secretary service, Martha Rice, of course, Hambro WSG, Dry Creek Landfill, Recology, and Julindra. So those are our contractors. And I include that to let you all know that's sort of our current status. We still are 2 people short, and at least in the office, we certainly all feel that. And I included this chart in the briefing packet that I prepared for alternate Commissioner Murray and Commissioner McClure, and reviewed the briefing packet with both of them. And I've included, also attached to the director's report, is a table of contents in case any of you want to review those documents. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Any questions of Mr. Ward? Very good. Go ahead.
Yeah, I had a couple. I never got a binder when I became a commissioner.
You did or you didn't?
I did not, no.
Oh, okay. Well, we can take care of that if you'd like a binder.
I probably collected it all.
I believe you probably have most of those documents.
Yeah, I think I have. Let's see. So, again, Ted, you've done some really good things this month. My one concern here, though, is in regards to moving ahead with the administrative assistant that was hired. And I was trying to go back. I actually had an opportunity this time to kind of look through the bylaws on, you know, about employees. It said how the governing board shall have the power to appoint, employ, and determine the compensation for officers and employees. I really don't know the procedure on how employees get hired, particularly when they're taking off of they're no longer a first-line employee, but being moved up into mid-management, because in that position is so key. Again, I feel that we need someone with a very strong financial background, and, you know, been trying to get moved to some type of an accrual system. We get numbers here that, you know, again, that aren't of value to us. I've got to go to the county, and so I don't know what's happening over there. Again, in looking at the hierarchy, It's a concern for me. What is the procedure for filling that position at this current time?
I confirmed with the county personnel department that it was at my discretion to fill that administrative assistant position with the person who was already acting in that role, which is Lisa Babcock, and she's been doing an excellent job.
And I don't have it, I really like her. She seems like a very wonderful, nice person, and she may very well be the very best candidate for the job. But I have no idea what her background is. And again, you know, for us, this body here, we're the governing body, and what I'm reading in the bylaws is that this isn't a county department, this is a JPA. And we have some flexibility over this, and I just think it is so critically important that we have someone in that key position that, you know, won't go in and delete all the receivables, or, you know, do something that we, I don't know the position that, what's going on over there, if she's handling the deposits as well as the, you know, writing out the claims.
We do not have a single person doing both of those activities. Those are separated functions.
Again, as, you know, on the board here, in my reading of the bylaws, it just stated that, you know, the governing board has the power to employ other officers, employees, and so I thought that would, you know, we would need to be referred to in you know, moving someone into mid-management position. I don't know the protocol though, so but I am very concerned anyway that someone in that position needs to have a background to be able to handle this. So that's my concern. I mean, honestly, I pulled it out again here, you know, Ocean World, I have one employee that works 20 hours a month, that processes up to 95 invoices a month. There's only 25 that go through this department. Cuts the payroll checks, cuts the checks, you know, I've 12 to 22 employees. I mean, and now there are so many over at the Solid Waste Authority, and there's only 25 invoices a month, and the county does the payroll. You know, the deposits are made to the county. So again, I am, in moving ahead with this, I just, it's something that I've always been concerned with is the job duties, and so
Okay.
I'm bringing this up.
Thank you. Mr. Gastineau, any other comments? If we violated our own bylaws, I guess we need to determine that. Ms. Wright?
I believe it's within the director's job description to hire and fire and make personnel decisions, and the acting director is directed to fulfill all the duties of the director while the director is absent. Typically, it would be the most, basically the director is the one employee that you hire, and then the rest of the contractors you hire. Most everybody under the director is going to be dealt with through your director or currently acting director. That's typically how these local agencies are run, and I believe it's within the job description specifically.
I also want the record to show that Mr. Gitlin had to leave the dais. I guess you caught that, Karen?
I did not, thank you.
Yes. He had other commitments, I guess. So it's not really on for any kind of action tonight as far as what you'd said. We can review this in future meetings, perhaps.
I'd also like to note just that it is standard, you know, that there will be, when anybody's, even if you're currently an employee, you're moved to a new position, you're giving a new probationary period within that new position. So if it doesn't work out within the probationary period, that employee would be moved back to their old position, and the new one would be opened up again. So even though the action has been taken to move an employee into the administrative assistant position, there is still a probationary period to make sure it works out.
Yeah, I've always thought of the probationary period as actually being part of the selection process. There are some organizations that actually don't call probationary employees employees. They call them candidates until they're through probation. So I would encourage you to pay close attention to probation and know that it's a property right to that job if they get through it, and when in doubt, they're out. That's really the way you need to approach probation in public employment, and that sounds harsh, but I think it's best for all concerned.
I appreciate the advice of the board.
And we really have to have someone there that has a strong financial background. That's my concern. You know, we've had these outstanding, $238,000 accounts receivable on our books for a year. I mean, we've had issues here. I don't want to go into all the details, but we need to have someone that has a really strong financial background in there.
Let's see, maybe she'd be willing to have additional training or something like that. I don't know, but we can work on that since I'll get to be the chair for the next year. So thank you for your comments. I know how strongly you feel about that, and
Yeah.
it makes some sense.
It's not a good idea to have someone who's hired at the gate to continue to move up into these positions when they don't have a background in there. If you bring in someone, that has a background, it's so easy for them to do things. They can get it done so quickly, as opposed to people that don't have a training background, and then we're subject to errors, which, again, I've unfortunately found,
Okay, so we'll watch that, and we'll deal with the probationary period, and we'll move on.
Absolutely, and I want to reiterate again how really helpful Ms. Babcock has been during this very difficult time, and how I have relied upon her thoroughness and her accuracy in terms of accounting, and she was hired as an account clerk and has served very well in those capacities and helped us through this transition. So I continue at this point to have a very high level of confidence in Ms. Babcock's abilities.
Okay. So we do need to move on. Under Treasurer Controller Report for December 2014, Mr. Taylor.
Thank you.
And we still have $198,177.17, our iBank loan deposit. We did a surprise cash count. We have $3,500 in cash. We showed a loss. These reports are from the county auditor. We showed a loss of $10,803 for December, but that included an expense of $29,293 for household hazardous waste event, which is not a normal, it doesn't happen every month. So we're rolling along just fine. I agree with Mary. I'm a big proponent of an accrual basis that we can produce ourselves to give you guys a real picture of what's happening. I have nothing against the county. They're on a cash basis. They're designed to protect money and to make sure you don't spend too much in a budget line item. But we have hundreds of thousands in receivables and payables. And if a payment gets paid early, it affects the profit and loss for that month. If it gets paid late, it affects it. So an accrual basis would be, I agree with Mary. I'd like to see an accrual basis that we can run out there, and it can be done with the right staff.
It's simple for them.
Yeah.
Because they're trained in it.
Yeah, so, and I agree with Ted. Lisa's been doing an excellent job out there, so.
Okay. Well, thank you. Any questions of Mr. Taylor? Okay. So moving on, claims, let's see. Claims approved by the treasurer and director for 2015?
Again, the big one is our regular monthly payment to Hambro WSG. You'll notice the Smith & Newell payment is on there, as well as the Haven Construction.
Okay, very good. Monthly cash and change reports for January 2015?
Okay, fairly typical. I'll jump to the end because it's always where the bottom line is, which is our earned revenue comparisons. And we're well ahead of our revenue projections for fees through the transfer station, and we're just a little bit behind in our projections for franchise fees. So in general, our revenue is coming in ahead of where our projections were.
Okay, thank you. Earned revenue comparisons, same?
That's what I just covered that because that's the...
Okay, so we are at the end of our agenda. We're going to adjourn until March 11th, 2015 at 4:00 p.m. because that's what's in our bylaws. We may be having a special meeting prior to that or after that, so.
And that would, of course, be announced and posted in the usual places.
Right. Okay, thank you all for staying here. Good night.